Picture this. You're driving down a familiar city street, right? But your navigation system absolutely insists you're hundreds of miles away, literally floating in the middle of the ocean. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a phenomenon that honestly sounds like pure science fiction, but it is happening right now. We're breaking down the data and reports coming out of the Middle East, where an invisible weapon is causing silent, widespread chaos. We aren't talking about traditional warfare today. Instead, we're looking at the manipulation of the very signals that hold our entire modern world together.
And the scale of this is just wild. We're seeing verified reports of Tesla cars in Dubai, showing their locations as being deep in the distant desert. Over in the Arabian Gulf, massive 300-meter-long cargo ships are seemingly teleporting. They're transmitting coordinates from the dry sands of the Arabian desert. And up in the sky, commercial passenger planes are flashing on radars as being in two completely different countries from 1 second to the next.
So, what is actually going on here? That's the central mystery of this explainer. Are we just looking at some massive regional software glitch, or is this the deployment of an invisible weapon? Well, all the data points directly to the latter. We are witnessing a huge escalation in electronic warfare. And to really grasp how this impacts everything from your late-night food delivery app to global security, we need to uncover exactly how this whole thing works.
Let's jump into Section 1, the Middle East GPS mystery.
In the current geopolitical theater, particularly looking at Israel and Iran, traditional weapons like missiles and drones, well, they aren't the only threats on the battlefield anymore. The battle space has completely expanded into the invisible radio waves we rely on every single day. When analysts look at tracking software like Flight Radar 24, they aren't just seeing minor deviations or little blips, they're seeing completely impossible zigzagging flight paths. Take an Emirates flight from Madrid to Dubai, for example. It showed a massive location glitch right at the UAE border. Flights heading from Sharjah to Egypt or Mumbai are suddenly displaying these erratic, zigzagging paths, instantly teleporting across borders and showing up at 3 different points in the Arabian Gulf simultaneously. It literally defies the laws of physics.
And it's not just isolated to planes in the sky. Everyday civilian apps like Uber, Careem, and food delivery services in Dubai are totally failing. But the maritime network? That's even more shocking. Ships are broadcasting their locations at the UAE-Saudi border directly sitting in the desert sand. On the Iranian coast, ships are being tracked moving in absolutely perfect 300-meter circular paths on solid ground. Now, I don't need to tell you that a massive 300-meter ship physically cannot do a tight donut on dry land. This right here is the absolute hallmark of intentional signal manipulation, specifically aimed at confusing Iranian Shahed drones that rely on GPS coordinates to find their targets.
To really wrap our heads around how militaries are engineering these massive anomalies, we need to understand the science behind the magic trick. So, Section 2, how GPS actually works.
So, GPS, or the Global Positioning System, was actually created back in 1973 by the U.S. Department of Defense, strictly as a military weapon. They launched their very first satellite in 1978. But 1983 is the pivotal year for us. After a tragic incident where a Korean passenger plane crashed due to navigation errors, the U.S. decided to open up this military technology to the entire world to prevent future tragedies. And by 1995, the complete global system was fully up and running. So how does it magically know exactly where you're standing? It all comes down to a basic mathematical law called trilateration. Here's the thing, a satellite doesn't actually know where you are. Nope, it just sends out a radio signal broadcasting its exact current time. Your phone receives that signal and calculates how long it took to arrive. Because radio waves travel at the speed of light, your phone just multiplies that time by the speed of light to figure out exactly how far away that satellite is. Think of it as drawing a massive imaginary circle of where you could potentially be. By overlapping 3 or more of these circles from different satellites, that intersecting sweet spot reveals your exact location. And to put the awe-inspiring scale of this math into perspective, if a signal takes exactly 70 milliseconds, that's just 0.07 seconds, to reach your device, your phone instantly calculates that the satellite is 21,000 kilometers away in space, and it's performing this flawless, mind-bending calculation constantly.
But here's the vulnerability. There are only 31 total GPS satellites currently orbiting the Earth, keeping this entire global infrastructure running. Every single smartphone, airplane, and massive cargo ship relies entirely on the very weak radio signals continuously whispering down from just 31 satellites 20,000 kilometers above our heads.
And because the signals are traveling from so far away, they are incredibly weak by the time they actually reach Earth. Which brings us to Section 3, jamming versus spoofing.
There is a very clear, very dangerous contrast between these two military tactics. GPS jamming, that's basically brute force. It involves setting up a transmitter on the ground that just blasts powerful noise on the exact same 1575 megahertz frequency that civilian GPS uses. It basically just shouts over the weak satellite signal, causing total blind blackouts. Your devices simply can't find their location at all. On the flip side, GPS spoofing is a highly sophisticated lie. Instead of blasting random noise, a ground transmitter broadcasts a completely valid GPS signal, exactly like a real satellite, but it intentionally feeds your device the wrong timestamp. Because this fake signal is coming from nearby on the ground, it's way stronger than the real satellite signal from space, so your device totally believes the lie, and its location is completely hijacked.
Now, when these military tactics spill over into our civilian world, the stakes escalate dramatically. Let's look at Section 4, the threat to everyday life.
We are quite literally talking about life or death scenarios here. When militaries use GPS jamming to protect their bases, incoming drones lose their navigation. But they don't just magically disappear. They keep flying blindly and can end up crashing right into unintended targets, including residential buildings. And spoofing? That is even more terrifying for commercial airliners. A passenger plane's ground proximity warning system relies entirely on GPS. If a plane is spoofed into thinking it's flying over somewhere flat, the pilot will get absolutely no warning if they are actually flying straight toward a mountain range. To the pilot, the systems look completely normal. Spoofed planes can also be silently tricked into veering directly into heavily restricted no-fly zones, risking catastrophic mid-air incidents.
But beyond the physical danger, there is a massive, surprising vulnerability hiding right inside global finance. You see, inside these GPS satellites are atomic clocks, literally the most accurate timepieces ever created by humanity. Why does this matter to you and me? Because the global automated stock and crypto markets use the exact time from these GPS atomic clocks to definitively timestamp every single microtransaction that happens globally.
And this creates a terrifying domino effect. High-frequency trading bots make huge financial decisions in fractions of a second. If a GPS spoofing attack alters that timestamp by just 1 single millisecond, a bot records the wrong time for a massive trade. Suddenly, the entire sequence of who bought and sold what becomes completely corrupted. According to the data, a glitch like this could trigger a total collapse of automated financial markets in a matter of minutes, long before humans could even realize what was happening or pull the plug.
Which brings us to our final chapter. The Future Invisible Wars.
We have to look at the historical precedent of these tactics to really understand what the future of global warfare is going to look like. Think back to the 1991 Gulf War. The US military used a pretty primitive 16-satellite GPS network that only they had access to. It gave them an unmatched advantage, right? While Iraqi forces were completely lost in blinding dust storms in the dark of night, the US could navigate perfectly and drop munitions with exact precision. It was the ultimate navigation tool. But as we look toward 2026 and beyond, the technology itself is no longer just a helpful tool, it is the battlefield. It's now a two-way weapon of manipulation being used across modern conflicts. We've seen it recently in the Russia-Ukraine war, the Israel-Syria conflict, and now broadly across the entire Middle East.
And if you want concrete proof of how insanely effective this is, consider this chilling event from December 2011. A highly classified US RQ-170 secret drone took off from a base in Afghanistan to conduct surveillance over Iran. But Iranian forces used GPS spoofing to feed the drone a lie. They manipulated its coordinates so perfectly that the drone's computer actually believed it was descending back into its home base in Afghanistan. In reality, it was safely landing itself directly inside Iranian territory. A state-of-the-art military asset was flawlessly hijacked, and not a single shot was ever fired.
And that leaves us with this final, provocative thought drawn directly from the source material. Future wars will be fought not with gunpowder, but with invisible radio waves and data manipulation. The nation that ultimately succeeds will be the one that uses this technology without becoming a slave to it. So I have to ask you, knowing how deeply tethered our entire modern world, our cars, our commercial planes, our financial markets, is to just 31 satellites floating out in space, just how safe is the invisible infrastructure powering your life right now? Think about that the next time your Maps app glitches out. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you see.